patrol deputy went out, made contact with the family, takes the initial report, and I was notified about the report, and we asked that the child be taken to Baylor Scott and White McLean's Children, where the resource team there can begin the treatment to make sure that again on that road of recovery. Once that was taken care of, and we had the details of the offense that's been alleged, we reached out to the school district through our school resource sergeant, Sergeant Brittany Barnes, and she made notification to the school district that we were investigating an employee. And at that time, looking at their communication, attempted communication was notifying Blackburn that he was on suspension and suspended his access to facilities, right? So everything's now key card, and they immediately restricted that. So that was the safety of the children. So Monday we began, full force into getting the investigation going. We were able to provide, because the public's going to want this information, we did a joint press release with the ISD, because we have our portion, they have their portion, and just putting the story all out at once, that's what we were trying to do. But Investigator Reeves started, and the first thing that we have to do after the hospital evaluation is we get them into the Child Advocacy Center of Central Texas. That's a mouthful. It is here in Belton. These are specially trained, what we call forensic interviewers. They are non-law enforcement, they're non-judgmental, and they are trained to talk to these children and survivors to get the information, right, in a one-time setting. Investigator Reeves was able to get that set up that morning, and we got our child into that. That happened very quick. I'm going to tell you, sometimes that doesn't happen. There's one facility, they are a nonprofit. They are supported by donations and grants. And I don't think people understand that that facility is there. And they are a huge resource to getting the story from these kids. And they do a great job. But that is also required in the justice system that they be interviewed. After that interview, Investigator Reeves was able to determine that there was a misdemeanor offense that we could present to Justice of the Peace Coleman for the display of harmful material to a minor, and that was pornographic images. And so with that, in the public's safety and the children's safety, we secured that warrant that evening, and we arrested Blackburn. Yes, we are conducting a sexual assault investigation, but this was about getting him in custody. We interviewed him and started our investigative process, right? So now he's somewhere where he's not a danger to the kids, right? So we have a charge on him. And then we placed what we call the 48-hour investigative hold on him, which is allowed by the Code of Criminal Procedure. And that allows us to work our case. And so we start working that case. We start forwarding the next morning on Tuesday all evidence that we have requested from the ISD. They have provided to us with no headaches, no hiccups. They have given us everything that we've asked them to do. Once he was arrested, they terminated Blackburn. His employment with the school district was terminated as soon as I told them that he had been charged. And so that was on Monday night. We started forwarding our information, the initial information, to the district attorney's office so they could start their review. But we're also still conducting information. We're talking to other witnesses that have been identified, and we obtained 3 search warrants as part of the investigation. And that was all through on Tuesday. So you can imagine that's a lengthy process. A witness interview can take, an hour or longer, plus driving to them. We actually go see them. We don't make them come here to the sheriff's office. We will go to them. And this is a big county, right? So Wednesday morning, we did execute 2 search warrants. We executed one on Blackburn's home, and then we executed one on his vehicle to gain evidence there. The district attorney, after reviewing the information that we were able to provide to them, they did accept 3 felony charges against Blackburn, and those were the aggravated sexual assault of a child, indecency with a child by contact, and indecency by exposure. And so we went and served them on him. We don't always do that, but we went to serve that warrant on him, and we wanted him to know that we are still investigating, and that's what I'm here to tell the public. This investigation is not complete, but we have him charged felony. And there could be other charges that are coming. I can't tell you what those are because we're at this point, right? We've done this, and we've got him charged through the court system. He has some significant bonds. I mean, those are hard bonds to make. I know some public doesn't want him ever to get out. Those are significant bonds, and he does have rights, and he has his day in court, and so we understand that. We also want to point out that Blackburn had no criminal history before our arrest of him on Monday. Okay, so the ISD did a background check. There was nothing to find. Okay, we have no criminal history for him. He has worked at Academy ISD for 5 years as a maintenance worker, so he does have access to all the campuses in the facility, and he has been a bus driver. Now, that doesn't mean that every kid he came in contact with is a victim. I want that to be clear. We are not saying every child that he came in contact with is a victim. However, I will say we don't know if there are other victims out there. And so I go back to my key point. Parents, if Will Blackburn had contact with your children, we're asking you to have that hard conversation with them and make sure that there's not something that we need to be doing to make sure that they are not a victim, and get them help. So that's kind of where we're at. It's a team effort, right? These felony cases are always very complicated, and they should be done the right way. We only get one chance to do it the right way, and if we mess that up, then guess what? Justice is not served because there's a technicality, right? And so there is a process that has to go through. We want to move as fast as we can, and in this case, this moved very quick, and just all the pieces fell in place and the stars aligned, right? Because the Advocacy Center can always use more funding to hire more interviewers to make a bigger space, which would allow us to get our kids in there faster. That's the reality of it. And that they serve every child in this county. And sometimes they only have 2 interviewers, roughly. So you imagine everything that we're doing, Colleen's doing, Temple's doing, every agency is sending those kids over there, right? So I want to give a huge shout out to them, right? They are the people. They don't stand up in front of the cameras and talk about this, but they are a huge part of this. The team at Baylor Scott & White is a huge part of this in taking care of these kids. Okay. So that's really what I have. I'm sure y'all have some questions, and let me see if I can answer them. Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to tell us if there are any other children that you're looking to, just the amount of minors you might be looking to?
So I think we don't know, right? I mean, obviously we could give you a number of how many kids are on his bus, but I don't think we want to send panic out there and think again that every kid could potentially be a victim. That might not be the case.
Or just like what you guys are focusing on right now, do you know of any other children who have been impacted?
So, out of privacy, there is one that we are talking to, but we haven't gone through this process because we've been working on this process. So that process will work. There could be more. There could be no more. And this victim could, or potential victim, could not be a victim, right? So we kind of sit in a place of not knowing, and we don't want to rush to judgment either.
Are you able to tell us if he was sending pornographic images to the victim, like their phone, email?
We don't have that information, but obviously that's something that we always want to look at in what we call predatory behavior. But all of that would take us gaining probable cause to obtain other search warrants to get that right, the legal way to get all that. And so, again, that's part of this investigation is not done. We've taken care of this first part. Now we move into the next parts. We arrested him in Colleen at a family's home.
Are you able to just kind of talk to us, from your perspective, or as investigators, how is it, what does it do to you, just investigating something like this in potential? What would it involve a child?
Well, I think, one, it's very difficult, right? Investigator Reeves is our lead sexual assault and child investigator. She's been doing that for a multitude of years. It weighs on her. There has not been a lot of sleep. I want people to understand the last couple of days haven't been 8 to 5. They have been early mornings and late into the evening and into the night that we have been investigating this. It has been sending warrants to district judges late in the evening for them to make evaluations so we can do the next thing the next day, right? So all of that wears on you, just physically, the tired. But then I think what makes it sad is also the driving force, right? If we don't do it, who will, right? And that's not just us. We work with investigators that at all our partnering agencies, and when it becomes a kid, it is wearing on you, right? And we all have kids too, and I have grandkids, and I don't, we don't want to see our kids hurt. So I think that's a driving force that empowers us to plug on. We ate a lot of drive-through this week. So that's the untold things that we're doing. So, but it is a team effort, right? And so Jamie's up here. She was the lead investigator on this. But there was a multitude of investigators that were helping, right? And we can't bring every one of them down here and put them in front of the camera, right? Because they're doing other things today, helping other victims. But it was a team effort. And so when these, what we call important big cases come, it's all hands on deck, and then you kind of go back to your others. So.
We've seen, and I don't want to say it in increase, but we've been doing a lot of stories about, teachers or employees of the school district, the relationship with children. Are we seeing that more in that area? Are you investigating more cases like that?
I think we are getting better as a society about having these conversations with our children and saying this is not right and to say something, right? And that has been a cultural change. I know when I was in high school, you knew these things, you just didn't talk about them. You had that creepy uncle, and you just kept them away from you, right? That's not what we do as a society anymore. And so when we come out here and we say, hey, have these conversations with your children, they're teaching this in school now, right? I think that that's what's happened. And for years, we get cases even now where people are finally coming out years later and saying this abuse happened because we didn't talk about it before. So I don't know that it's more. I think that's hard to judge. Is it more, or are we just getting better at identifying it and talking about it and putting it out there? That's what I believe, just in my 28 years in law enforcement. As second generation cop, I think we're getting better at having the conversations. And these are hard conversations with our kids, but they need to be had. And I think people coming forward that, saying, man, I saw that and that just isn't right? And not keeping it to yourself. Those things are coming out. So I think that's where we're at. Well, being a parent, we're very busy and we're caught up and we're doing all the things that are life, right? Whether it's our kids are in baseball, volleyball, football, whatever. It's just making that time to be connected with them and just having those conversations. It's just part of being a parent, right? It's just part of it. But I think, there are other resources out there, right? I think teachers are getting better. There's been some new legislation this year with school districts and when they have to report suspicion. And I think that that's just going to make it, as we navigate through that, making sure our kids are safe, right? Because isn't that what it's all about, making our kids safe? So we do, but that's not stuff that we talk about, right? That's case details, that's held for the jurors and judges to make a determination, right? We don't want to get that out there.
Is there anything you can comment on Blackburn's mentality during this time? When you arrested him, when you faced or searched for more warrants?
I mean, he's polite, but no, and and that would be a judgment call, and I don't want any bias to go into how we feel or don't feel about him.
Is he forthcoming with information, or is he?
I can't really talk about that. Right? Again, that's for the judicial system.
And then regarding the felony charges, can you tell us when it happened and where? Like, is there what school bus number he was driving or what school district he was in?
No, I don't. So those are details, again, that are for the judicial system. And again, you would know, they're going to know who their bus driver is. And so that's the conversation that needs to be had with the parents. And I will say the school district has reached out to the parents on that bus to notify them. And the same thing, they're doing the same thing, asking for that help. They've been great. I mean, they have not, and I think that's some of what we wanted to say, right? We notify him he's suspended. We arrest him, they fire him. We want evidence, they gave it to us. And they gave us the evidence that we were asking for, not in days, but in basically an hour. They provided that to us. So they've been great, right? So. All right.
My last question. I noticed that when you were reading the charges, that it got a little emotional. I know a lot of officers have their personal, wanting to fix this. What's the mentality that you and your sheriff's office has while you're continuing this investigation?
Well, again, that goes to that driving force, right? We're trying to find justice in whatever form, and getting our job is information gathering, right? It's to gather information and get it to the judicial system so they can make the most appropriate charge, right? And make the most appropriate decision, whether that's a jury or judge. That's our role, and so that is our driving force in that. And yes, it is hard, right? Because we know the details that I can't tell you. We don't talk about that. That will be to a judge and a jury to make that determination. And I think it's hard on everybody. The district attorney's having to see this. So there's a whole group. So, all right. Well, I think the school districts are good about training and saying, this is, don't do this, don't do that. I don't, I can't get into what was or what wasn't. But I think it's very easy to look at the school district, its internal behavior, right? William Blackburn made a choice, and he victimized this victim. It's on him. Yes, we can do better as a society, and I think that there's things that are established in there, but let's focus on it. It's him. He's the one that's been accused of this. No, none at all. So, all right. Well, thank y'all for coming out. I hope that answered questions.